We want to talk about some of the best places to get your seed potatoes for the upcoming growing season. Guten Yardening, everybody! Well, I'm really excited for this video because today we're going to talk about a few of the different places that we source our seed potatoes. And I think it's a really important video because there's a lot to consider whenever you're thinking about where to get seed potatoes. And so this video might take a little bit longer, but we really want to provide you with some of our thoughts on some of the pros and cons for each of the different places that we're going to talk about in this video. And I think it's really useful to know this information as you go into that selection process for this upcoming growing season. So let's talk about the first way of getting seed potatoes, which is to make your own from potatoes that you harvested the previous season. Now, in order for this method to work, we need to assume a couple of things. One, that you've successfully grown potatoes the previous season. And we understand that that's not going to be the case for everybody, so this might not be the ideal method for you. However, if you did grow enough potatoes for you to consume and had some extra, this is a great way to use those extra potatoes so that you're not wasting anything. Now, depending on how you store your potatoes, let's say you have them under your sink or in a cool, dark place, you may find that you are ready to go as your season gets started. And in some cases, you may find you're even, well, a little farther along than you need to be as growing season starts. Now, you will find that different potato varieties store better in some cases than others. And if you'd like to see a video on storing potatoes, that's something we could do for you in the future. Just leave us a comment and let us know. But our varieties have certainly started to sprout, the ones that we've had in storage, and some of them are definitely farther along in terms of sprouting than we would like at this point. But that's something that we're learning about as well as we experiment with new varieties. But we have all of these potatoes that were additional to what we were able to eat this past season. These are from our last harvest. And now we're going to be able to put these in the ground. We're going to be able to plant these here in the next couple of months. Now, in addition to not wasting extra potatoes that you might have, I think there are quite a few pros to this method. For one, you know how it tastes already. So you're picking a potato that you've tried before, that you've now had a good amount of experience cooking up probably. And so you know if you want to grow it again, you have that right at the forefront of your mind. Additionally, if you had success with it the previous season, the likelihood that you can continue that success in gardening, I'm not sure that there's anything that's ever a guarantee, but the likelihood of you having success with it again is very high. And if you have a potato that performed well for you and didn't seem to be impacted by disease, well, then you can look at this as, in all likelihood, you have a pretty good disease-resistant potato to plant again next season. I think one of the biggest pros to this method is the cost. Because they're a part of your previous season's harvest, you don't have to pay anything else for them, and so we'll call them free for all intents and purposes. Now, one of the cons here is that you are not planting certified potatoes. So what does that mean? Well, that means that there is the possibility that there could be some disease that you didn't see last season. They're lurking in the distance, and I suppose year over year that could compound to the point where you could have a disease take over a crop. But our experience has been quite successful when it comes to planting our own seed potatoes from previous year's harvests. Now, if you'd like to see a separate video on how to make seed potatoes themselves, well, let us know in the comments and we'll do our best to create that content for you as well. Now, when it comes to seed potatoes, the one thing that you should remember is that some of them will be older than others, because if you're planting an early season potato, one that you've had harvested for quite a bit longer, and then you're planting like a late season russet like this one, when you can see this one is just now starting to sprout. It's got quite a few eyes on it, but it's just now starting to chit, whereas one like this, or I'll use this one, one of our Norland Reds here, which has been out of the ground for quite some time, and you can see it's really starting to take off. This is an older seed potato, and what that means is that if you're growing from seed potatoes at home and you don't know the age of the seed potato, it is possible that they might be a little less vigorous. There might be fewer potatoes coming off of these older seed potatoes. But that being said, we also planted some of our really old seed potatoes last season just to see what would happen. And we got pretty good production out of those seed potatoes, even though they were really old. So again, it could be a con. You could see less vigorous growth, but there's also still that possibility for really good production. Now, the second place to source your seed potatoes, and it's really popular in our area, is from the grocery store. We've seen quite a bit of content from YouTube creators and others who have bought organic potatoes from the store, chitted them, and then planted them and had good success. So that's definitely something that we've seen people be successful with. We've even had success with this with our fingerling potatoes. We bought a 99-cent bag of organic fingerling potatoes from the store, and the results from that single planting was about 7 or 8 pounds of potatoes. I mean, we've had success with this as well. One of the pros to buying from a store is that the cost per pound, let's say you're buying organic potatoes at $4 or $5 a pound, that's a lot cheaper than what you're going to find if you're buying from a nursery or from online. So that's a pretty good pro. But there are some potential downsides, some potential cons for this one that are pretty profound. Now, if you have success, that's wonderful. But because you're limited in what your knowledge is of the crop that's going to be in front of you, I mean, these potatoes are there for you to eat. They're not guaranteed to be certified. They're not guaranteed to be productive when it comes time for planting. In addition to that, you're limited really to the supply that the store has when it comes time for you to plant. So if you don't like the variety that you have there in that store, well, there's not much that you can do about that. And I've seen this plenty of times where the store will just call the potato a yellow potato or a red potato, and there's no specificity about what exactly that type of potato is. Is it early, mid, late season? You don't know necessarily what you're getting into with those potatoes. And one thing we've also found is sometimes organic potatoes, at least the ones that we would like, are a little bit hard to find at the store anyway. And so this is a very popular option. It's a pretty cost-effective option, but maybe it's not the best option if you're also looking for variety and that guarantee that there shouldn't be any diseases attached to those as seed potatoes. Now, a third place, and a place where we've definitely gotten potatoes from in the past, is your local nursery. One of the really nice things about going to a local nursery is the ability for you to talk to a person and to have the physical seed potatoes in your hand. I don't know, there's something about that. We do a lot of purchasing online. I get that our society has sort of moved to that direction, but there's something I think important at times to having that physical product in your hands so you know exactly what you're getting into. Now, when it comes to purchasing from a nursery, we have found the prices to be a little bit higher, certainly than purchasing from a store. We've also found that you're limited to the supply that the nursery is going off of based on the demand from the previous year. So supply and demand will determine what varieties are available and the number of seed potatoes available. And one thing I can tell you, as fast as you blink, what our experience has been, as fast as you blink, the supply of potatoes that come into the nursery seem to disappear. So what I would recommend if you're planning to go this route is to contact the nursery ahead of time and ask them, when are your seed potatoes going to come in, so that you can get ahead of the game there and be ready whenever they come into the store, so you can get there and get your supply if that's the direction you want to go in. A couple of other pros for this method though: you're supporting a local business. You don't have to have them shipped to you, so hopefully you're saving a little bit of money on shipping, and you can again talk to the people there. And a lot of times the people who work in these greenhouses and these nurseries have some pretty good knowledge of the growing experience themselves. So in addition to looking at the label for whatever the potato is that you're looking to buy, you can have a back and forth conversation and learn what they know and maybe get some advice or some tips from them. Now, one of our favorite options, especially when it comes to sourcing unique varieties or different varieties of potatoes, is either through a catalog or online. And I think, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, this has become a really popular way of sourcing just about anything that you're looking for garden related, is to be either through a catalog or, especially these days, online. And when it comes to variety, it makes so much sense to us to use this method because you can find online stores located throughout the US. And I know globally they have these online garden stores. And so what you're able to do is to really look through a limitless variety of potatoes. I guess you're only limited to the number of potato varieties out there, but you can find one of these online stores or one of these catalogs that's going to have a variety likely that you're looking for. This season, for example, we purchased a whole bunch of new varieties from one of our online sources. And I'm not going to take much time at all. I'm going to scroll those names of the varieties on the screen, but that's for a later video where we talk specifically about those varieties. But in addition to this wide variety of potatoes that we now have access to, these websites are a fountain of knowledge when it comes to the background of potatoes, planting them, harvesting them, what to expect while you're growing. And so one of the benefits of being able to purchase these online is access to that knowledge. And if you pick the right website, they will not ship your potatoes until it is about time for you to plant them. And so they'll plan ahead for your zone so you don't have to take the space up in your house to store them. All of that work is done by them, and they send them to you right at the correct time. That's a very valuable resource. Now, one of the potential cons for purchasing your potatoes online is that you don't get to physically hold the seed potato and see it there. You're reliant on pictures and descriptions. However, most of these websites allow and even ask people to leave reviews of the potatoes, and we hope that those are unbiased reviews, but that should help a lot in formulating whether or not you want a specific potato. Additionally, the seed potatoes you buy online can be a good bit pricier than they are at other places. However, if you time it right, a lot of these websites, a lot of these catalogs have pretty good sales, so you can get a good deal on your seed potatoes and you don't have to pay that list price. Now, the last way to get seed potatoes, and we have been on both sides of this method, is to get seed potatoes from your community, from your friends, your family, and as Geeky Gardens would say, your potential friends. There are a lot of gardeners out there who are willing to share their potatoes with you if they have extra. This past season, and it was one of the highlights of the season for us, one of our local community members gave us some Adirondack Blue seed potatoes and some yellowfin seed potatoes. And we were able to grow a lot of our potatoes from that gift from our community. And so getting potatoes from a community member does a couple of things that I think are really positive. One, it builds community. We're a part of a community garden where there have to be 80, 90, 100 plus gardeners out there. I am confident that they would be willing to share if they had extra. And when it comes to fellow gardeners, our experience has been that they are some really, truly giving people. And it's not just the physical giving somebody a seed potato. In addition to that, they're willing to give advice, willing to share experiences and provide knowledge. So they've grown potatoes before, perhaps maybe even more than you, maybe a different variety than you, and they can talk you through their experience. And that share of knowledge, that's a wealth of knowledge that's available as a part of our larger community. And really that's one of our larger goals, is to share some of that knowledge and to share as much as we can from our garden with other people as well. So we've sent out some of our Purple Magic Molly seed potatoes to a few of our community members as well, to give them the opportunity and the experience to grow them just like we did. So reaching out to a community member you know as a gardener, or the community at large, and saying, hey, do you have any seed potatoes you'd like to give away some extra? Or would you like to trade for something else that I have? That's an excellent way to get some potatoes for this upcoming season. I realize that this was a little bit of a longer video, but when it comes to potatoes, I mean, we could talk for days anyway, but we think it's really important to explore your options, depending on what your end goal is. If you want a wide variety, if you just want to try for the first time, I think these different options have different levels of fit for you. Well, we hope you enjoyed this video and learned something today, and if you did, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.